Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the July edition of the Holland FinTech Online Meetup. People, I am an account manager at Holland FinTech, and I'll be your meetup host for today. If we can go to the next slide, I'd like to quickly take you through the agenda for today. So as you can imagine, right now we are in the welcome words from Holland FinTech, followed by the traditional FinTech market update by our founder and CEO, Don Ginsel. And then we'll dig right into the presentations we have lined up for you today. We'll be starting with a pitch by paywith.glass, followed by Moving the Needle. Then we'll have a short break for the Fintech Monthly pub quiz, hosted again by our founder and CEO. And then we'll be finally going to the last two pitches of today from everyoneINVESTED and Fintechamps. At the end of the event, we will be announcing the best company presentation of today. On that note, I'd like to remind you that you'll be in charge of rating today's pitches. So you can do so by simply going on the right-hand side of the screen where you have the chat box. And next to that, you have the poll section where at the end of every pitch, you'll be able to submit a rating. Also, one thing that is good to mention is that after every presentation, there will be a 5-minute Q&A. So if during a presentation you have a question you'd like to ask to the speaker, I'd invite you to put it in the chat box so that I'll be able to ask it to the speaker. And then, of course, some closing comments will be made to close off the July edition of the meetup. With that being said, I think it's time we go to the next slide, where I'd like to invite our founder and CEO, Don Ginsel, to the stage to provide us with an overview of what happened in the past month, to always stay in touch with what's going on in the market. So Don, whenever you're ready, please join me on stage.
Hi, Gabriele. I'm here.
Hi, Don.
Just checking to get my camera going.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. There's something else occupying my camera. Let's figure out what it is. No, I'm afraid I'm going to have to do without camera, which should not really be a problem because you should be looking at the slides anyway. Yeah. Let me see. Should not be so hard. There it is. Just checking in here, Gary. Are you seeing my screen properly? All right. All right, let's get going then, and I'll try to fix the camera later. So good to have all of you together again. We are very much looking forward to get you all together again in one place to actually have a proper conversation and discussion, much more about the content, of course, than just being able to send it over your way. We really like doing it the digital way because I think we can reach more people, while at the same time we really miss the interaction, I think, as everyone else does. But we still have to be a bit careful as COVID is definitely not banned out of life and out of business. So we'll have to keep on being careful there. So let's have a look at what June brought us. What you basically will get from me is an overview of the things that we've been writing about on our website, in our newsletters, and what we've been talking about as well in all the events that we've been talking about with all of you. So if you want to get this news earlier than at the meetup, please feel free to subscribe to our newsletter on our website, and that's where you'll be able to get, at least on a weekly basis, all the news into your inbox very easily. So what is happening overall? I think we've seen a crazy stock exchange market again over the past month, with quite some fintech listings. Wise, I think, was definitely one to recognize, formerly known as TransferWise, a remittances and payment firm that originated from Estonia, but in the end basically was based mostly in the UK. And they listed there on the London Stock Exchange just a couple of days ago. quite an interesting transaction, and you see that there's actually a lot of these fintech companies now either doing an IPO or becoming listed through a SPAC, a special purpose acquisition company, which is basically a listed empty shell company that acquires a third party, and that third party then becomes listed. So quite interesting, I think, to see, and there's still a lot of money in the market. So and I think it's good for fintech that there's so many straight exits going on, as that also spurs more people to put venture capital into the industry, which allows us to build more solutions, more experiments, and come up with better. Another big thing was, of course, last year we saw that Visa tried to acquire Plate, a big open banking platform from the US, but it got cancelled because of concerns with the competition watchdog in the US. So the deal, which was almost completely run through, was cancelled after all. But Visa made up for it by acquiring Tink, a European player in open banking and a connection provider. So I think it's a really interesting play. Visa seems to be quite persistent to go into open banking and look at to play a key role in the connectivity between banks and payment providers, as well as information providers based on banking data. I think it makes a lot of sense if you look at, of course, Visa's strategy. I think for all the credit card companies, you see that they need to rethink their game because at some point, probably the networks will be circumvented. So they need to figure out how they, if there are any alternatives popping up, how they're going to play along there. And I think that's where the deal with Tink plays an important role. Of course, there has been some CBDC news, right? So the central bank digital currencies remain popular, and like every month, there's at least one or two nations that announce that they are actually doing a trial or something on a central bank digital currency, like a cryptocurrency, but then run by central banks. This was interesting, by the way, because this was actually an international collaboration on central bank digital currency, where they did a trial on between the Banque de France and Swiss National Bank, together with BIS, which is the bank of the central banks, basically. So quite an interesting experiment. I think it's still way too early to call what central bank digital currency are actually going to do, but it remains interesting to see what kind of experiments are being run. And I think one of the things we really should be looking out for is the big advantage that we should be finding. So far, I think it's not circumventing existing systems or circumventing costs at such a level that it becomes really interesting. And I think in a lot of cases, it's still a fairly defensive move by central banks to just rule out alternatives for this, which we, for example, could find in the formerly known as Libra project by Facebook and other initiatives like that. PayPal is really strong to launch a decentralized cross-border payment network. I think this is interesting. PayPal was really driven always to basically do peer-to-peer payments. They've been really focused on commercializing, I think, their proposition to a large extent and becoming more merchant-focused. But it's interesting now they're actually looking at a decentralized finance, DeFi, to actually look at possibilities to open more peer-to-peer payments again, especially cross-border. Quite interesting project to follow. Let's see, HSBC has some news on AI-powered equity index. I think we'll, of course, see that AI is already playing a very important role in capital markets. Think about algorithm-based traders like market makers or high-frequency traders, which are sort of the counterparts of that. But it's now interesting that offering is becoming more and more available through let's say, non-institutional and retail players. So from that perspective, it's also interesting to follow. I think, for example, in the Dutch market, it's interesting if you look at the bots, which is one of the Holland FinTech members that allows people to invest in a bot that trades on behalf of you in crypto, in this case. And that's quite an interesting world, I think. And I believe we're going to see much more of that development, where picking the right algorithm to invest for you might actually be more important than stock picking as it was before. The question is whether actually we want capital markets to move in that direction, but it seems for now, in any case, until further regulation comes about, that's quite inevitable. Let's see. The ID that Apple launched was quite important, as we see that there's a really big fight going on for storing people's ID and being the identification provider. So I think what we, of course, are familiar with in financial services is that for any kind of transaction, you need to validate who is actually operating this process and who is the counterparty that I'm dealing with. That is not for all processes so well established, especially in the online world. It's very often useful to be anonymous in a lot of cases. But what you see is that actually for the trust of services online, it becomes increasingly important that we actually have the opportunity to validate who we're dealing with. And I think that one of the interesting parts where you see that also the big tech firms like Apple are jumping in and looking at basically moving a bit closer towards the financial industry with regard to their ID requirements, as well as the way that they play a role to store your ID, your validated ID, and basically Apple then takes on the role, like similarly you could say as a notary, to validate actually that you're the person that you're claiming you are, which could play an important role in actually accessing all kinds of services. And I think that's an interesting perspective, which you can compare to all kinds of bank IDs that are being rolled out, as well as others that are trying to move into this space. Very much looking forward actually to that development as well. On the crypto space, we see that it was interesting. While at some point China was actually banning activity in crypto altogether, and at the same time, in the same week, we saw that El Salvador was actually opening up to make Bitcoin a legal tender. So you're actually able to pay your taxes in Bitcoin in El Salvador, which got quite interesting. They actually were not so reliant on their own currency anyway, because besides the Bitcoin, the dollar was already the major currency that was accepted there. But it is very interesting one that I think try to make it interesting for parties to actually come there, and the new crypto millionaires to actually land in El Salvador. Could be an interesting strategy from that perspective. And we do think that some other countries are actually going to move in the same direction. At the same time, you'll see that the debate about whether cryptocurrency is actually a proper legal tender for payments, or whether it's actually just a speculative asset that people could invest in, or, and this is something that still a lot of people say, is that it's just being used for money laundering, for example. I think we're going to see much more use of this, and I think it's not going to disappear anymore. You do see that the regulators are moving in to actually regulate money laundering, to regulate KYC on parties that are actually operating Bitcoin wallets or exchanges. So it becomes much more part of the establishment. And from that perspective, I do believe as well it will remain a financial asset also into the future. By the way, there's an interesting publication on our website that you should definitely read about this, to check out what the pros and cons are actually about cryptocurrency. Definitely recommend you to read that. Then we have the app Dave in the US to go live. I think, yeah, as I told you, there's quite a lot going on in the listing space, and Dave is running. Another interesting thing on the digital wallet and identity space is the planning by the EU. EU remains very active on the regulatory fields towards the financial industry, not all just repressive, but also sometimes facilitating. In this case, what they're trying to do is actually make it easier for people to use their identity in a digital way to access services across countries. The only thing that was kind of funny was that they announced that would be, for example, to open a bank account in a different country. Well, of course, if you would actually look at the infrastructure that's already there with SEPA, the Single European Payment Area, you actually shouldn't need to open a bank account in another country once you have one European account already. But it has become clear that from that perspective, SEPA is not done yet, as it's still actually hard, for example, with a German IBAN to actually pay your utility bills in France, for example. Right, so you actually see that there's still some acceptance challenges between these IBAN numbers, which still need to be resolved. And this is one of the patches that you could see in any case for that. And of course, it would be interesting to actually see a more universal ID that's useful across the EU. A nice example actually is already there. If you see how the Corona travel app is being developed, has been developed, and why you could actually now use an app to validate that you're either vaccinated completely or that you have been recently tested and are okay, so you're able to travel. And I think that's already that the EU came to an agreement on that, so I think it's a big step forward. From that perspective, I think hopefully also this initiative for a digital ID is also going to work well. Yeah, that's it, I think, for the main part of the news. We'll go to the funding recap, which I'll keep a bit brief because I think we're running out of time. Well, another spec listing here on top, which is not completely fair, of course, because generally there the numbers are quite high, which is SoFi, alternative finance platform in the US that's doing quite well. It's been around for quite a while as well, with 1.18 billion. What's actually, if we go down to the largest private funding rounds, we actually see that Dutch company Molly, a big, very nice payment champion based here in Amsterdam and expanding quite fast now across the globe. They raised 673 million euro Series C at quite a nice valuation. So they've really spiked up after being around for quite a while under the radar. They've now closed quite some series rounds over the past year, which really put them on the map. Nubank, a neobank from Brazil, has actually did a very nice funding round again. I think they're really the major neobank player in South America. That's doing quite well, with also over 600 million raised. WeFox is the insurtech on the list, with also a really serious investment round, which I think we haven't seen so much for. We don't see insurtech companies raising that much actually very often, but this is actually a really nice one, and I think this Berlin-based company I think is doing very nicely. And then we have Klarna, who we were expecting actually already to go listed basically go through an IPO. They did another round first, but it becomes clear that they will go for an IPO quite soon, probably hereafter. And they raised over 540 million recently. So it's quite interesting, I think, to see how these players move up. And if we then actually move up to the European space, we see many of the same players. So it's actually quite extraordinary that many of these rounds were actually European, because very often we see that especially the US is very dominant, or otherwise Asia. In addition here, things that we didn't mention before were Ledger, who started out with hardware crypto storage, and are expanding their services quite broadly now in the crypto and decentralized finance space. Very interesting company based in Paris. And bought by many is, for the rest, also another one that raised quite a serious amount. Which is sort of really looking into the community spirit in fintech. Definitely also an interesting company. So what does that mean from a Dutch perspective? Of course, there we'll see Molly again on top. But we also saw some other quite interesting rounds with Bank just announcing, actually technically not in June, but in actually they announced it this week, 160 million round growth equity, which is quite a serious amount of money that gives them a very nice valuation, and it's actually their first funding round. So it's quite extraordinary that they did not get funding before from external sources. The founder was able to fund it all by himself, which I think is quite an achievement. So really nicely done. And then we have some smaller rounds, definitely not to isolate, because I think normally we would be very enthusiastic about these kind of amounts, but just that the top amounts are so big that you would almost forget about the smaller ones. But Sentinels, who's very strong at use of AI for anti-money laundering, raised 5.7 million. Change Invest raised 3.7 million, and Spotter.ai, another AI company, raised 2.5 million. Here you see the overview how the funding looked over the past month. So you see that UK has been very dominant in June again in Europe, but for the rest you'll see that Germany, Switzerland, Spain, and Netherlands, and Italy, and Russia were also actually doing quite well. And on the right hand side you'll see the distribution also per city. If you want to read more up on the fintech funding, we make a report every month that you can find on the Holland FinTech website, like the link you see here below. So what we also track is not just news and funding rounds, but we also look at research and opinion pieces. This is an interesting one, an open banking report that was listed by SPIR and Whiteside. We shared it through our newsletter, and you can find it also on our website in the way that we basically see that open banking is evolving. I'm not going to go in deep here, but it's really interesting to see how the thinking about openness is really evolving from basically providing one API with very specific data from a very specific company, moving towards open banking, which is really opening up the financial industry to a larger extent with regard to banking data, then to open finance, where also insurance, pensions, and everyone is involved, and to a much more open economy, where everything is going to be connected. And especially, I think an important call there is that it's all about the customer being in control over who gets access to which data and how it's going to be used. Then, as a final closing remarks, just some key quotes that we picked up in the opinion pieces that we saw. Chris Skinner, always a commentary to follow. He always has some very nice contradictory views of the world that they always hurt a little, but sometimes there's very often a truth in there. So it's quite interesting to see what they say. I'll leave them to you to read. I think to actually enjoy them, because I'm not going to read them out loud. It's a bit lame, but you can definitely find them also in our wrap-up report as on our website or through the Holland FinTech newsletter. So I'm very keen to see you reading all this, and hopefully you've picked up a bit so we can test that in the Kahoot quiz later on. So I'll see you then.
Well said, Don. Thank you for the market update. As usual, it's always good to have this overview really grouped in 10 minutes to get a sense of what happened in the past month. But again,
try to keep it really in 10 minutes next time.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds good. But in any case, if Don's presentation wasn't enough to fulfill your cravings, there's plenty of content to dig deeper into the topics on our website. So I invite you to go there at the end of the event. Besides that, I suggest it's time to dig into the first presentation for today. The first pitch will be from paywith.glass. paywith.glass is an intelligent global financial transaction infrastructure, and it is built to empower billions of people to transact instantly with currency fluidity and from anywhere on Earth. But to tell you how they do it and more about this, we have the co-founder of paywith.glass, Paul Cisnet. So Paul, whenever you're ready, here you are. So welcome. Yes. And whenever you're ready, feel free to share your screen and kick off the presentation.
Okay, no problem. So hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I'm just going to share my screen and walk you through what paywith.glass is all about. So as we call it the internet for the world's money, we need to give a bit of background on where that comes from. So if we think back over the last 50 years, our culture has evolved, the way we communicate with each other, everything has evolved dramatically over the past half a century. And banking has also evolved dramatically over the past half a century. Now, specifically the way we communicate, we've seen dramatic changes. I mean, we don't recognize any of the stuff. If we think back on it, today, it's a completely different world from what we had back then. So the real question is, why is it that I can communicate with anyone anywhere in the world. Like you can have one person in Paris communicating with another person in Taiwan on two completely different carriers. It doesn't matter what phone they're using, what carrier they're using. They can have a video call, share files, share messages. On top of that, we've got a very substantial amount of the world's population also connected and able to do this. But more than half of the world's adults are not able to actually participate in banking, and sending money in the same way that we send data isn't actually possible. It's a completely different world altogether from what we do when it comes to the way we communicate. So the main reason for that, despite having a very large pool of very significant players in the industry, so new fintechs popping up every day, very high value fintechs, they're pretty much all an island. And some of them are just there to interconnect other islands. So this is one of the biggest problems the industry faces. This is fragmentation on a global scale, quite literally. They're still also thinking in a way that's well outdated, the same way of thinking that has been around since the 1970s, 50-year-old thinking. So imagine if you were trying to route WhatsApp messages or send things over or have a call over WhatsApp, but behind the scenes, the system that's being used is this. That's pretty much where the industry sits today when it comes to banking. And one of the things that is also separated from the main processes is the complex AML and KYC processes which are occurring to make things happen. So this is actually one of the high costs. This is also one of the things that slows everything down. And as a result, we basically have these siloed, expensive solutions being used by various players, an entire world that's separated from everyone else, and we're entering the CBDC era. So nothing that's out there right now is supporting what's needed. So that's where we come in. We're basically creating the solution that we call the dawn of the new era. This is the solution for the digital currency era. So paywith.glass is effectively an entire stack which is built for digital currencies that integrates all of the components into one solution. Instead of having separate islands and separate silos, it's a single streamlined solution governed by artificial intelligence. At the bottom of the system is a distributed cloud platform that's designed and optimized for performance and low latency. On top of that sits our own blockchain solution built on a proof of authority based blockchain, open source blockchain. Above that is the digital identity and the integration of compliance, because it's a component that's absolutely necessary today. But one of the problems with that solution today is that most of the time it's a separate process from the transactions, adding time and cost to your transaction processes. So we've integrated that and embedded it into the core of the solution. And this entire thing connects to the rest of the world using ISO 20022 compliant APIs, as well as our super app engine, which is built using our integrated dashboard. So we have the issuance capabilities for central bank digital currencies and or cryptocurrencies, depending on what regulations allow in any country. We also have the super app engine, allowing all institutions to quickly spin up their apps without having to build from scratch a full super app on the core engine. So this look you see here is just the default, generic look, but every institution can build their own app to look and feel the way they are comfortable with. And this allows every player in the industry, in the ecosystem, to connect over one platform. So this creates a brand new digital currency ecosystem optimized for the CBDC era. The result is any institution that would normally have to work through a bridge or an independent party and hop across multiple connections just to send, to allow transactions to go across to another, can communicate directly over the same API. So we're looking at parties on M-Pesa, on Kuda, on Chime, for example, able to send money directly to a bank, which is something you can't do today on existing infrastructure. And it's also done with ISO 20022 compliant commands. So it's easier for the banks and others who are already transitioned to ISO 20022 to move to this new platform. Effectively, you can have in-chat payments. So in the middle of your conversation, you're able to send payments regardless of what carrier or provider anyone's using. Similar to the way we communicate, we're now able to send money as easily as we send text messages. The e-commerce integration over APIs means that app from the bank we already use can now work anywhere in the world across providers with ease and with security using push payments. Full e-commerce integration, creating the next generation digital currency ecosystem for the entire world. So we are able to deliver payments as easily as texting on the new ecosystem, the new platform that we've created. The solution is also meant to cut the costs, significant costs that we see today in all these fragmented solutions. We're able to reduce these costs and even exceed the UN SDG goal 10C before the year 2030. And inclusion and impact is a major part of this because we're looking at 1.7 billion adults around the world who are unbanked today. And moving into the digital currency era, that's going to mean 1.7 billion adults or more who are excluded from the global digital currency ecosystem. That's a socioeconomic disaster of epic proportions waiting to happen if nothing is done to solve this problem. So our operations team has been hard at work to build a solution for over several years, as a matter of fact. We're backed by experts from the banking, payments, and settlement space with a lot of experience in the space to actually guide us. And we've been actually ramping up to deploy. So we're going to be launching a CBDC pilot with a major European nation at the end of this year. You can probably guess who if you're familiar with the logos on the screen. But this is our go-to market. So at this point, we're looking at being, once we're launched, we'll be one of only 3 viable retail central bank digital currency solutions that can actually scale across borders. At this point, we're looking for network connections, so introductions to major parties that would like to be a part of this upcoming pilot. We can discuss after. And we're also raising our first external round. So this is Pay with Glass, the internet for the world's money. And we're open to questions.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for the insightful presentation. I think it's really cool what you're trying to build here, what you're building here. So I see already there's a few that you have sparked a few questions from the audience. So let me take on the first one. So are the payments processed by yourselves or are they processed by the end user of your product?
They're processed by the actual infrastructure itself. So think of it it actually borrows from the cryptocurrency world. So what you normally have where you do a payment across a blockchain, it's actually processed within the blockchain if there's a decentralized exchange. In our case, we're using artificial intelligence and our proprietary AI-powered high-frequency trading engine to process the payments. So the end users, as long as they're compliant, they're able to participate. So it's real-time AML and KYC monitoring. And then once they're able to participate and initiate a payment, it's processed automatically across the system and settled.
Okay, yeah, that's clear. So thanks for the answer. And maybe just on a more general level, how do you envision your business model to work?
We're actually a license-based model. So we're just the technology provider. We are not involved directly in the actual execution. What we do is we provide the technology and keep it working. And all the regulated institutions on the platform then pay license fees depending on what level of involvement they require. So those using just the settlement portion of it would pay a lower fee compared with those who need the full AML and KYC, the white label engine, API integration, et cetera, for e-commerce, et cetera. So it's just license fees, flat rate. Not per transaction. All right. Which is what we're trying to do to the industry, for the banking industry, is what VoIP has done to the telecommunications industry. So back before the 1990s, it would have cost an arm and a leg just to have a voice call across borders. This wouldn't be possible. What we're doing right now at no cost would not be possible, if technology hadn't evolved. VoIP changed it for voice, and eventually video joined it, and everything is now flat rate. You're not paying per minute to have this communication. We're trying to do the same thing to the payments industry.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's really ambitious. So that's really cool to hear. So, and I actually heard, I see there are no more questions from the audience, but I was sparked, let's say, our curiosity, because you said you develop a whole layers of different components that basically in the end have a one-stop shop solution. I was wondering, all those components that you developed are developed in-house?
They are developed in-house. They took several years. In fact, as to our knowledge to date, we're the only other digital currency electronic payment infrastructure solution other than China in the world that's capable of retail CBDC scalability.
All right. Wow. Well, I think that's all the time we have, but I'd stay here talking about it for a couple of hours. So let's grab some coffee soon. But in any case, thank you very much for your presentation. And I'd like you to stay around, so we'll be announcing the best company pitch at the end.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Ready.
So now it's time to move to the next pitch of today. The next pitch today will be given by Moving the Needle. At Moving the Needle, they have a solid system for B2B SaaS companies to achieve a bold goal. But to explain what they actually mean and what they do, we have the mind behind Moving the Needle and book author Bart Den Haag. So Bart, whenever you're ready, please turn on your camera and take it away. Let's see. There we go. Can you hear me, Bart?
I can hear you, but my connection, there's some problems with my connection.
Okay. All right. Let's give him one more minute to see if he can solve the problems with the connections, and otherwise I would suggest we change the order of the presentations. Let's give him one more minute. In the meantime, let me remind you to rate the company's pitches. So you can do so, as I mentioned in the beginning, in the post section on the right-hand side of the screen. And it will basically appear at the end of every presentation. So by the end, we'll be able to announce the best company pitch as voted by the people. So it's important that you do so. I think Bart might be having a few issues. So with the connection, yeah, I would say then let's switch the order of the presentations and give Bart a little bit more time to figure out the technical issues. Karol from Everyone Invested, would you like to join me on stage for the presentation? There you go.
Yes,
so, Karol,
Gabriele, can you see me?
I can see you and hear you really well, so that's great. And well, I'll leave it direct because you're here on stage. I won't do my typical introduction. I'll leave it up to you to tell all about Everyone Invested.
Okay, great, thank you. Can you see the screen, Gabriele?
Yes, I can see it.
Great. So thanks for having me, and good afternoon, everybody. I am Karol Govaerts. I work as a sales manager for Everyone Invested. Everyone Invested is the WealthTech spin-off from KBC Group. Actually, we are the innovation team of KBC Asset Management that pioneered multiple projects that contributed to KBC's leading position in investments. And we provide with Everyone Invested digital solutions to engage, recruit, and retain investors, with at the core of our solutions behavioral finance and technology. We have a fully operational SaaS platform with APIs that fit in the digital customer applications of universal banks, retail banks, online brokers, and private banks. And today I'm going to talk about one of our solutions, which is called the Profiler, and the results of the implementation in KBC Ireland. So with Everyone Invested, we want to get everyone invested, of course. And as such, we need to move people from being a saver to a profile saver, an investor, and in the end, a sticky investor. But the biggest hurdle proves to be the profiling, the onboarding, and the risk profiling. If banks really want to increase their investment fee business, their efforts should focus on getting a lot more investors on board in the first place. My message today is that banks should not merely try to comply with legislation, but view the profiling differently and unlock its commercial potential. So there is really a lot of potential nowadays to get everyone invested. We live in times of low interest rates and liquidity that's piling up, and many people are willing to take more risk and consider investing. There is a large pool of potential investors available, but they're still hesitant. Catering to the needs of these people means making onboarding as smooth and easy as possible, but it also means increasing the user experience in a digital setting. Yet the burdensome and lengthy questionnaire that is now used for profiling has refrained many investors from actually taking the leap and invest their first euros. But why should we make it so difficult for customers to step in? Traditionally, conversion hovers at 80% or more. But these were people that were highly motivated to make an appointment, to come to a branch, to listen to an advisor. But in a digital setting, it is a different picture. We see that dropout in a digital flow can be 40% or more. And when we push the questionnaire to the screen of a mobile, dropout can be even more. So what we did with Everyone Invested, we actually took a whole new approach on profiling customers and potential investors. And we replaced the traditional questionnaire with a totally new onboarding journey. We improved the questionnaire actually on 2 domains, in terms of content and in terms of method. So you will not see in our screens, in our solution, a questionnaire, but rather a personalized gamified journey, fully tailored to the real situation of the client. It's also mentally refreshing. Each module in a journey uses another method to collect information. We don't use questions. We use choices. So the client has to choose between different scenarios. We use visuals and screens, and as such, it's way more appealing and compelling for a client to complete. In terms of content, well, we actually add another dimension to revealing risk preferences. We base ourselves on the work of Daniel Kahneman, who says there are actually 2 ways thoughts come up in a person's mind. It's thinking slow and thinking fast. And the thinking slow part in the standard suitability questionnaire, that's taking into account. So it tries to unlock the long-term risk-reward preferences. But the true emotional ability for people to bear losses, that's not captured. And with our new solution, we also capture the fast thinking, how people cope with losses and interim gains. So our profiler, it's a new tool to increase the commercial capabilities of onboarding, but it's also fully MiFID compliant. So we take into account the financial situation, the risk-reward preferences, also ESG preferences as is required in the near future, the knowledge and experience, and target market. The profiler is modular by design, so a bank can take all modules or slip 1 or more modules into their existing digital onboarding process. If we look at the results, they are pretty good. So we implemented the solution in KBC Ireland. KBC Ireland has a very digital-first approach. We see that 80% of people that start the process to become an investor, to get profiled, actually complete the process. And that's 25% more than with the traditional questionnaire. More importantly, we saw a 10% business increase after implementing the profiler. And we see that almost everybody, 99%, accepts the profile generated. So customers do not overrule the outcome of the profiler, but they can really identify themselves with the generated outcome. Here is an example of the results at KBC Ireland, and you can see that people are now not only placed in one dimension, the thinking slow part with the classical very defensive, dynamic, and very dynamic profiles, but they also are profiled in the thinking fast aspect. So we truly surface people's emotional ability to bear losses with our solution. So the profiler, to summarize, will give you more profiles, it will give you better profiles, and it will give you more accepted profiles, and in the end, more business. And with our solution, you can get everyone invested. Thank you. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you for the presentation. I think everything was really clear. So thanks for that. Let me check if there's any questions from the audience. I see that there are no questions yet from the audience, but perhaps you could share a little bit of, or could you expand a little bit on how you see yourself differentiate from your competition?
Yes, so we worked for several years on the solution. It's based on sound academic research. So actually our founder, Jurgen van den Broeke, he also PhD in behavioral finance. And we really thought it through. We used a lot of, we did user tests. It's implemented in Ireland. And we see there are great results. And I think the core value of it is adding the emotional dimension that's lacking in a digital context. So if banks really want to thrive in getting more people on board, they should really consider viewing people as emotional beings. And we capture that dimension in our profiler, and as a result, banks can now have a tool at their disposal to really cater to the personal needs of every investor and lay the basis for a long-term relationship with an investor client. Because profiling it's a one shot you have. Either you do it good or you don't do it good. And in the latter case, you won't have success. People might step out in the investment space. But on the other end, if you do it good, if you do it well, you will get sustainable clients and sustainable income.
Okay, yeah, that's quite interesting to see. As usually you would imagine, investment decisions are made are purely rational, but then it's interesting to see how you tap into system one thinking via your different applications. So that's really cool. So let me see. I see a questions from the audience, and actually Don is asking, what do you think about the paternalistic approach of governments and regulators that limits people's ability to invest?
That's more an ethical
Yeah,
question. I
big
think
switch.
I can agree with it. I don't think that governments and regulators should put that many limits on it, but we have to live with it. So I cannot change that. What we can do with our solution is make people feel comfortable about investment, is making people discover their investment personality. That's what we do, but changing the regulation, I cannot do that.
All right. Yeah, that's a great answer. So thanks for that. I think that should be the last question because we don't have much time left. So thank you again, Carol, for the insights that you shared.
Thank you.
And I'd invite you, as I mentioned, to stay till the end so you can see if you are the winning pitch. So I'll see you later. And of course, I remind the audience to vote to rate the pitch from Everyone Invested. But in any case, now it's time to go for a short break with our pub quiz. Don is already back on stage with the camera on. So Don, please take it away.
I'm really here. You can validate my identity. Sorry about the tough questions just now. I always think it's interesting if we dive into the motivation of investors, especially retail investors, how to govern that, and especially since Everyone Invested is learning so much about the behavior of people. I always find that very interesting to see also where you can give people more control, for example, over their life instead of forbidding them to do stuff that might be risky. Before you know it, we'll all go out there with a helmet on our head because it's very dangerous to live outside, right? So, cool. Yeah, but of course we're going to have a bit of fun. So I'm looking forward to do the quiz with you. If you've been paying attention before, I think you have a very good shot at making it through the pub quiz. So I'll share my screen, and the idea is that you go to kahoot.it. And that's where you'll find the Kahoot quiz. And so you can actually join there and with the pin Yes. There it is. The game pin is still loading. That's it. So the game pin, so you go to kahoot.it, then the game pin is 287155. You can pick your own name to identify yourself. Some people do it commercially, some people want to be funny. Please keep it decent. We've got some real thinkers on board here with Socrates. Yeah, really good. At least someone is supporting the Italian team. Going to be an exciting match there on Sunday. Someone is planning to move to El Salvador with their crypto account. Also interesting. Someone else is ready for drinks in summer. Yeah. Silk Road, also interesting concept to look at. To our connection with Asia. We're going all right. So I'm just going to zoom myself out so we can focus on the quiz. Did everyone get the chance to fill it in? Final check here. Please go to kahoot.it on any device. And then, good to see you there, Bart. Just hold on for a minute. We'll get you on stage. Called Pilsner. That's also a really nice name. I think there's probably also some people looking forward to that. Okay, last chance weekend. Definitely also very good. Let's get going, everyone. I'm looking forward to the quiz, and I'll take you through. Here we go. Pay attention. Because time is of the essence. The World Bank agrees to increase the climate change funding from 28% to how much? So on the budget of the World Bank, they plan to increase their budget spending directed towards climate change. Do you know which percentage that is? 30%, 35, 40, or 50%? Oh, that's not everyone knew this. I think it was also quite a tough one to get started. So the more easy questions come a bit more towards the end. So I think you'll be fine. But Six had it correct. It was 35% indeed. Let's move on to the next question. After we've seen how the scoreboard has evolved, Airbro was the fastest this round of the 6 ones that had it correct. So keep on going. Everyone makes mistakes from once every while, but indeed also keep track of the time, because the faster you are, the more points you get. Stripe payment company is launching what kind of product? An ID verification tool, a remittance tool, a payments tool, or 6G internet tool? What is Stripe currently launching? Yes, we didn't talk about Stripe specifically in the wrap-up, but we did talk, of course, about how many parties are actually now looking into ID verification at the moment, like Apple, for example, or the banks. So here you see indeed that also Stripe is moving into this space, expanding their services beyond payments. Let's see what happened on the scoreboard. It's summertime, for sure. Well done. Let's see how that moves on in the next questions. The Dutch payment firm Adyen was recently licensed a branch license in the US. In which US state was that? All right. Let's see which one it was. It was California, indeed. I think most of you had that right. So that's wonderful to see. What happened on the scoreboard? Airbro is back at it, but Weekend's doing great. So let's keep on going and let's see how things evolve over time. We've got still a couple of questions to go. MasterCard and Visa collaborate on something new. What is that? Cross-border payments, cash payments, mobile payments, or biometric payments? Yes. Oh, there was quite some division there, whether it was cross-border payments or biometrics, but it was indeed biometrics. So let's see what happens there. Airbro is doing quite nicely, but we see Casper moving up. Curious to see how that is going to end up. Which European banking platform has been acquired recently by Visa for 1.8 billion? Well, this is something you should know. Tink, Token.io, Klarna, TrueLayer. Which one is it? Speed is of the essence. Hold yourself a little bit before going to beers, otherwise your reflection time is going to lose from it. Think it is indeed. So it's interesting to see that most of you got that right. I'm glad you paid attention. Now let's see what the timing had to do with it. Oh, Airbro is really on a streak here, so doing very nicely. I hope he somehow makes some mistakes so others can keep up and perhaps have a chance. So HSBC, we talked about them as well. They powered an AI-powered equity index is been launched. But what was the name? Was it SkyKit, Learn, Theano, IPEX 5, or MXNet? What was the new HSBC AI-powered equity index product called? This was a real tough question, where a lot of you thought it was MXNet, but it was IPEX 5. Tough question. Next one is much easier. Let's see how we're going. Oh, Kotshower is actually moving up very nicely. Let's see what's happened next. Which country became the first to make Bitcoin a legal currency? US, Chile, China, or El Salvador? This should not be so hard. But of course, who's the fastest and benefits the most? All good? Well, that's what I would expect. Ooh, not much changing on the scoreboard as well. Let's see what the next questions will do. Which celebrity is attached to Dave, the personal finance app that's going public, that recently went public? Is that Elon Musk, Mark Cuban, Virgil van Dijk, or Jeff Bezos? Yes, I think you're all in. And of course, as we know that especially Elon Musk likes to involve itself in all kinds of financial services. This one was Mark Cuban, quite renowned VC from the US who invested in Dave and plays a very important role there. And also Jeff Bezos was actually seen as quite an important one. That's interesting. Just retired from Amazon as a CEO, but not yet that active in the fintech space as we've seen. Some slight movement there on the back end, but it seems like Airbro and Kotshower are pretty solid. 2 more questions to go. How much did PayPal invest in to help the advance fight economic inequality? $100 million, $125 million, $110 million, or $135 million? Yes, it was a bit of a tough question, I'm afraid, but 3 of you got it right. So let's see what the impact is on the scoreboard. This could definitely shake things up. Oh, it's only on the bottom part, but we see some parties moving in. Let's see with the last question what can change. How much funding did Molly raise in the recent Series C? Was that 627 million, 762 million US dollar, or 672 million euros, or 276 million guilders? Yeah, most of you got that right. And let's see if that impacted the score. So here's the podium, everyone. Let's see what happened. Summer did a very nice one at number 3. Kotshower did very well at number 2. And is it still Airbro actually making it at number 1? Yes. Well done. Congratulations. Very nicely done. 8 out of 10 correct. So that's a pretty good score. What we would like you to do is actually send a private message so we know who you are. If you take a screenshot of your winning image in your screen that shows that you're the winner, we'll basically send you a very nice surprise as a thank you and to celebrate a little bit. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you also, again, learned a little bit more about the fintech developments. And I'll hand it over gladly back to you, Gabi.
Thanks, Don, and congratulations to Airbro for the win. It's always tough to win in such a competitive space, so congrats for that. But apart from this, let's say bye, Don. See you later. Let's go back to Bart and see if we can get him on stage. That's very responsive, so thanks for that. Can you share your screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Then whenever you're ready, just feel free to kick off the presentation.
Doesn't show if I can pick a window.
So if you click on the screen share button, you should be able to see a option to share either your window or your Chrome tab, and that should solve your issue.
Yeah, it doesn't. So I'm going to improvise here a bit.
Okay.
So I'm just going to share the. Do you see the screen?
Yes.
I'll enlarge it. All right. Sorry about that, for the computer meltdown. So hello, everyone. And thanks, Gabrielle, for inviting me and to share the story with you. My name is Bart Den Haak, and I'm the founder of Moving the Needle, but also the author of the upcoming book, Lean OKRs. And for the last decade, I've worked with ambitious leaders who want to innovate and we want to improve performance and we want to have truly motivated teams in multiple SaaS, fintech, and startups like Backbase, Mambu, Bing Bank, which is now Saxo Bank. And I've seen them grow into really strong, healthy product organizations. But I also witnessed agile and digital transformations, successes like the ones in ING Bank. But to grow a company to a multi-million AR and MR business with good profit margins, or to take your company public, requires two things. And that is hard work and disciplined and committed leadership. There's actually no shortcut to success. And the journey from startup to scale up and to become an established player is really tough. And between 50 and 70% of the companies I start working with, they either don't have the right metrics in place or they set the wrong goals to measure that they're actually achieving these things. And many of today's leaders I work with, they tell me over and over again, they tell me these 5 main struggles. They find it really hard to improve predictability and throughput of their software engineering and product teams, while the technical depth is increasing, which limits them from scaling up or to expand to new regions. Also, the alignment of leadership teams and their teams is really hard. It's easy when you're 20 people, but if you're going over the 200 mark, it goes harder and harder. And the same is true for building strong data-informed product teams. If you're just 10 people in a room, then it's easy. But if you go over the 100 or 200 mark, it becomes way more difficult to build these strong product teams. And then also finding talent and to keep the talent and to keep them engaged, especially in these days with COVID around, is really tough. And also, how can you do more with the existing talent that you have? And last but not least, they also find it really hard to stay innovative. Maybe they have a startup, they found state-of-the-art technology, but how do you keep innovating? And how can you increase your customer lifetime value, or how can you reduce churn rates? it doesn't really matter if you like a startup or if you that struggles to find market fit, or if you're a scale up and you want to get to the next funding round, the next Series B or C funding, or you want to take your company public. You need to have a system in place that can execute your growth strategy and to keep innovating. Well, that is the most well-known strategy deployment system that is out there in the tech industry is called Objectives and Key Results, or OKRs, which is a technique that helps you to focus and align and to commit and to track and to set really stretch goals for your whole organization and your teams. And well, however, despite all the book and all the good materials that you see online, many leaders they still struggle to implement and to see benefits and the results of this goal-setting technique in their own organization. And since 2015, Moving the Needle has advocated and coached like hundreds of leaders, product and engineering teams to help them implement this world-famous goal-setting technique that is used by Google and many other Silicon Valley giants, but also fintech companies such as Stripe, Nubank, which was mentioned by Don already, Curve, Swipely, which is now Upserve. They all use OKRs and a right set of KPIs. And I personally helped companies like Mural, Mambu, Backbase, Bol.com, BigBank. And only setting goals, only setting the right goals, only setting the right OKRs and the right KPIs is already difficult enough. But how do you actually move the needle on these type of goals? So in a nutshell, I focus on, with these leaders and these companies, I focus on three core aspects that actually help them move the needle. First, I coach and lead senior leadership teams into identifying their main strategic goals. We set the OKRs with them, and then I support together with a small team the departments, the product teams in setting up a lightweight system that can actually measure outcome-driven goals. But I don't stop there, right? So what I also do is we go in weekly check-ins with these teams, and we equip these teams with the right skill set, so they have like the tools in place to move the needle on these very ambitious goals. And as a result, these companies observe like a big boost in employee engagement and customer satisfaction. They see boost in team performance by at least 10%. They can significantly deliver their products faster to their markets without hiring new talent or very limited talent. They can do it with actually the people that they already have. And they've seen breakthrough internal transformation with exceptional results in just a few months. And last but not least, they become more attractive to investors and shareholders because they have installed this system that helps them to grow and innovate, but also that the same system helps them to make data transparent in their company. So investors and shareholders, they have a better understanding how the company is actually performing. So if you want to innovate and if you want to boost your team performance, if you want to build true product teams, then let's connect. You can schedule a free 30-minute call with me today, or you can check out my upcoming book, or you can subscribe for the latest updates on my website. That was it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Bart. Thank you for the presentation and for joining us today. Before we move on to the Q&A, let me remind the audience to rate Bart's pitch. And as usual, you can do so on the right-hand side of the screen in the post section. I see there is no questions for the audience, but I was curious on your presentation around the system you use. Do you focus, or do you think it's actually more effective on one specific vertical, or can it be applied horizontally across the industry? Let's say
it can be applied throughout the industry. Whether you see SaaS companies that already have installed agile practices, you see that they can adopt these kind of systems way better than traditional companies. However, just for no reason, I was involved in a lot of fintech companies, and you see that especially today, you see a big rise in Europe embracing this OKR system. It was already pretty famous in US, and now you see that the European-based companies also picking up on this management technique.
Okay, so it's a recent movement here in Europe of this application.
Yeah, for the last couple of years, 2 years, it's picking up.
Okay.
I think it's also based on the book of John Doerr, and Measure What Matters, why it's picking up in popularity. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's clear. I see we're a little bit short on time, so maybe one more general question: is there anything you'd like to say to the audience, or you'd like to ask the audience, or anything else you'd like to add?
To add or to ask?
To add or to ask?
Right. Yeah. So the thing is that OKRs, maybe a lot of people hear about it, and the thing is that it sounds really simple on paper, and it is simple, but it's not simplistic. So many companies they picked up the book, they try and they start implementing it. Whether or not call me or read my book, that doesn't really matter. But get a coach or get somebody that has experience with this stuff, because you can't do this alone. It's really tough to get it right. Okay. But it can definitely help your company give a big boost and really become attractive for your investors and scale up.
All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot for this wisdom, Bart. Really interesting presentation. So thanks a lot. And we'll be announcing the best company pitch soon. So I suggest you stick around a little more.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again, Bart. Bye bye.
Sure.
So now let's move to the last but not least pitch of today. We have for you Fintechamps. At Fintechamps, their goal is closing the gap between the fin and the tech. But I won't tell you how they do it. To do so, we have Freek Dix, co-founder at Fintechamps. So Freek, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Thank you so much. 2 seconds. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Holland FinTech, for giving me the opportunity to speak here. And thanks, everybody else, for sticking with me till the end on a Friday afternoon. I hope everyone's looking forward to that ice-cold beer after this meetup. My name is Freek. I'm one of the co-founders of Fintechamps. And yeah, like Gabrielle says, our tagline is closing the gap between fin and tech. Because what we've seen is that on the one hand, there's the traditional banks that have been sleeping for quite a while, with all due respect. And on the other hand, there's the tech companies that have created, nice solutions, but in the end need each other in order to scale and to apply with local regulation. And that's where we come in. So what we did, I'll tell you a little bit of history about ourselves, but we've been going around for the past 2 years. Founded the company with my two business partners, Bob Voermans and Mark van der Sluis. And myself, I have a lot of background in scale-ups, helping over 50 companies around the world, helping them scale, mostly from a business development perspective. But I've also spent some time at a large PHP here in the Netherlands, and so did my colleagues Bob and Mark. They've all been validated by the Dutch Central Bank, and build e-wallets from scratch. Sometimes processing over 60,000 transactions a day. We thought we take that baggage of know-how and network and expertise and help other companies succeed, and make sure they don't make the same mistakes as we made them in the past. So what we did is we built a team of around 15 people that have all been very much active in the space on different positions. Some legal experts, compliance, KYC, and AML experts. Previously, payment directors at large institutions, and build a nice team of experience. And what we do is we do 3 things. We have 3 pillars. So we do sales and business development on behalf of fintech companies. We do e-money institution licenses and PSD2 licenses and strategic projects. And in some cases we do direct placement and recruitment. And there's a couple of little bit of information about the companies that we work with. Some of them are the largest tech companies in the world. Now, why do people hire us? Is because we're all about acceleration. So our network is global, our know-how is global. We could connect the dots really easily in every single continent. We have the expertise to do these licenses I just talked to you about. And we also implement those strategies and projects. We've set up payment strategies globally for a lot of companies, and we still do for our clients. And the people we work with, have worked in this space for quite a long time and have been very successful. So what we do as a company, as a team, we attack certain projects and offer that for the price of one person that you would hire full time. So our services, like I said, so there's three main pillars, but around those three pillars, so the people that we put in place, the regulation and compliance services and the business development services. We do a lot more than that. Sometimes we do vendor management. We have a pricing analyst that's been in the space for the past 20 years. So we sometimes detach those guys. We do conversion optimization. We help with governance. We do a whole lot of different things. But the key about our company is that we don't really like the word consultants because those guys, with all due respect, of course, come up with a strategy and then it's up to the company itself to implement. We actually get our hands dirty. So we strategize, of course, but we also implement those strategies. And I think that's quite unique. So we become almost this extended department of for instance, business development department of a fintech company, or a pricing department of a fintech company. I think that's quite unique. So we implement, and we're very target driven. We make sure that we reach our targets no matter what. So that every month our clients pay our bills. They do that with a smile on their face because we brought them a return. And last but not least, we're pretty flexible. So we work with a lot of big companies, but also startups, scale-ups. We make almost every relationship work, and that's what we like. We only do things that we like. That's one of our mottos. I think then only you can be successful. Some of the references, Creative Group is a merchant that operates in multiple continents. They recently rebranded to Recharge.com. One of our team members was a payment director managing their entire payment team for about 9 to 12 months. Came up with a strategy, did all the vendor management and some more stuff. PPS, technology player that you might know from the UK, licensed in Brussels, part of MasterCard nowadays. Punk, that we saw Ali doing a good job on getting his first round of investment done, where he's actually chipped in 25 million himself. We ran the partnerships department for those guys. Nextway is a large e-commerce provider from France. We did a lot of things for those guys. So besides the business development activities, we did the pricing strategy, vendor management. We ran a complete gateway RFP for them. And while we were there, actually, they got acquired for the majority of the stakes by Kaspersky. XE is an FX provider. We helped them with the governance, getting the ME license at the Dutch Central Bank. Premier Pay is a PSP from Latin America, who recently got acquired by dLocal. So this is an update on the funding side of things at the same time. But we work with a lot of other clients as well. These are a couple of names that you might recognize. I can send you some stuff after this meetup about what we do, or we can get on a call to dive into a couple of the case studies. But I think for now, this is the story about Fintechamps, and many thanks for the invitation again and for your attention.
Thanks, Freek. Thanks for the presentation. I think it was really clear. Before we move on to the Q&A, let me just remind the audience one last time to rate your pitch. You can do so in the on the right-hand side of the screen in the poll section. And when we're done with the Q&A, then we'll be announcing the best company pitch of today. With that being said, let's go into the Q&A session. And I was wondering, so I saw that you basically don't differentiate between, not really don't differentiate, but you like to serve both startups and stock listed companies. So I'm really curious to see how that collaboration really happens, and in specific, how your pricing model varies across these different organizations.
Yeah, I think it all has to do with the time. Time is our only product, so so we can only monetize the time that we have, and we have a team, right? So we have people that say, look, we only need when it comes to business development activities, we only need 1 or 2 people that help them with getting access to, for instance, merchants around the globe, and then we put those 2 or 3 people in place. And we spend less time than, for instance, a company, a stock listed company says run the complete European commercial division out of Amsterdam, for instance, and that has a different price point, of course. But in general, the way we work is we have some sort of fixed fee, which is not we're not greedy people, so it's not that expensive. But then especially have some sort of bonus or commission in place, and we do that across all of our projects, and that's the target-driven approach we have. Even on the ME licenses, we have some sort of bonus when we reach that goal, and that's how we like to be motivated. I think it's good for both parties. Okay, so really just like keeping the entrance entrance barriers quite low, but then in case you reach your goal, the goals, then there's the reward. Yeah, that's exactly. And grow together, right? And grow, yeah. Start small and then maybe build that out. In the end, it's really a win-win situation. So that's exactly. That's cool. And in which markets are you active at the moment? And do you plan on moving towards also other different European markets? Yeah, I think we're based out of Amsterdam at the New Markt, but our clients are from Latin America. We're doing an ME license for a big Russian company, UK. It's all over the world, really. And our network, I think we've got about 200,000 contacts in our CRM. Are truly global as well. So yeah, we're a global company. Maybe at some point we'll have to set up shop in other countries or continents. But yeah, we can connect to almost anybody around the world, I would say. Okay, that's clear. Yeah, as a final statement, do you have anything else you'd like to add to conclude this? No, I think well done on organizing this meetup. Really, I had a lot of fun also with the quiz. We're obviously a member of Holland FinTech, and yeah, so appreciate the organization. And again, everyone for sticking with me till the end. Yeah, thank you, Frank. Thank you for participating. You're welcome. Cheers. Thanks a lot. So let's see if we have received the results from my team. I'm just waiting for them to let me know who the winning pitch of today is. And 1 second. Here it is. Okay, so I'm happy to announce that the winning pitch of the July edition of the Holland FinTech Online Meetup is Pay with Glass. So Paul, if you'd like to join me back on stage and say a few thank you words or a few victorious words, then you're more than welcome.
Thank you very, very much, and thanks very much to the audience for the vote. Yeah, so we're trying to make a difference here in the world, and we are very open to having everyone join us. So any institutions that would like to be a part of this platform or join the pilot coming up at the end of the year, please reach out to me. We'd love to chat. And we're also fundraising at this point. So any investors who are interested in being a part of this, also please reach out. We'd love to chat. Thank you very, very much to Holland FinTech. Thanks to Gabrielle. Thanks to Dawn, Margarita in the background. You guys are great. And yeah, happy to win the best pitch again.
Yeah, thank you. Congrats, and thank you for participating. Really.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Let's go have a beer.
Exactly. Just a few more words before I let you do that. I promise I'll be compact. If my colleagues can share the slides again, I'll take you through the one upcoming event that we have during summer, and then I'll update you a little bit of what's going to happen. Well, in any case, I guess I don't need the slides. So on Friday, the 13th of August, we will be having the monthly meetup again. So I'll be waiting for you there in midsummer. So please join me. And then with regards to open events, the Fresh Friday, that is our weekly event, has had its last edition for the summer this morning. So we will be coming back in full force in September with the very beloved Flash Friday sessions. With that being said, I'd like to officially close this month's meetup, and I wish everyone a great holiday, a great weekend, and I hope I'll see you all next month. Bye-bye.